Hey folks, welcome back to a completely different video. That's the best way to put it. I don't want to put the same stuff up over and over again, and I've been doing that lately as far as like carb repair, drilling out carb, broken jets and broken tips, rinse and repeat. That gets a little boring and mundane over time. I think it's important for all YouTube creators to kind of go off the beaten path, so to speak, as far as their genre or what they typically put up on the channel. And this video is going to be my version of it. And this video may involve some furniture repair, kind of special furniture repair. So let's go ahead and get right on with it. We'll see you at the end. Well, I didn't say what kind of furniture repair it was, but I did say furniture repair. So what this is a miniature version of it's kind of a hybrid. It's a hutch, obviously. It has the drawers, and there are more drawers inside there, which I'll show you. But it's very similar to a hutch, so that's what we're going to call it. I'm not an expert on, furniture, whether it's miniaturized or full size. So let me tell you about this. This was made by my grandfather on my mother's side. He was a real precise craftsman, an artisan, I guess would be the best word. He had a little wood shop up in southern Maine. And I remember it as a child, but not much. This my mother gave me recently around my birthday because she knew I really be appreciative of the detail and the craftsmanship. According to what she said, he probably made this in the basement of the house that she grew up in, which has long been out of the family. And I remember that because I used to spend some time down in there. And there was like a workbench and things like that. The guy was a real woodworking craftsman. And he knew a little bit about metalworking too, which I'll show you here in a little bit on a separate piece. So I'll go ahead and show you the top part here first. These doors open up. And I love what he did with the books. Not every spot for the books is filled up. Instead of just stacking them all in here. Obviously these are made by individual pieces of wood that are glued in there. And he hand painted all this detail, the little gold and stuff for this. What do they call the back edge of a book? I forgot what it's called, a binder. And I think that's really, really special because it really adds a lot of detail to this. I especially like this little knob on the top here that he made. So he took a little ball and drilled a hole in it and then put a little, probably a brass nail with the head cut off and then shoved it down in there to create that particular feature. And down inside here, this is a fold down section, kind of like you'd see in one of those office desks of the period. And it really looks that way. This could either be for plates, and I think that may be what it's for. This is like a dining hutch. So you'd stack plates in here vertically or something else. And then these two little drawers actually come out and they function. I think the drawers would be for silverware. So I think it's just absolutely fantastic how he did this. And it's labeled R for right. So he figured that these would only fit in one spot. This is the first time I've saw that. I've seen this. I was actually looking for some writing on here, so that's kind of cool. You're seeing it the first time I am. I haven't taken the drawers out altogether. And yes, there's the back of the other one. So he wrote that in there when he made these things, which is quite incredible how he did it. You can see a little brass nail for a drawer pull. And just the craftsmanship is just amazing. I just love this stuff, let me tell you what. Not just because it was a family member that made it, but for the sake of the craftsmanship and precision is pretty amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and leave these little guys out for now and fold this up. We'll go ahead and take a look at the drawers down below. So here's what top drawer, and that's something I didn't see before, so that's number 1. He labeled that 1, and then 2 and 3 respectively, I assume. So you can see the feature of the shaping of the front of the drawer. Number 2, I assume. Yep, there's 2. Inside one of these drawers here, there was a spare little brad nail. I think it may have just fallen out because I turned this over and the drawers fell out. But oh, I found it. It's right here. We'll go into that here in a minute. It's part of what we need to fix. And drawer number 3. I'm not sure what kind of wood this is. I'm not a wood expert. Dead tree carcass and I really don't get along as far as fabrication goes. I'd rather use metal. You see how the cutaways on the edge, kind of like is that a mortise or something? I don't know. So absolutely fantastic. We'll go ahead and leave these drawers out too, so we don't risk them falling around and going somewhere. And when I turn this thing over, one of the books stacks of books came out, which is kind of convenient because we can see how he did this. So it's just a little block of wood, and with the texture of the features in the front of it to make it look like individual books and then glued in there. And of course this one went in here with a little bit of space between it again to make it look like there's a missing book or something, which is probably where I would put it, like over here. Really classy in all the different colors. I absolutely love it. All right, so one of the primary things I got to do on this thing is to repair these simulated glass panels, these inlays in these very intricate doors. I think that's fantastic how he did that. How he cut that out without it breaking is, I don't know how, because this is very lightweight wood. So how he did that, I have no clue. Let's see if we can get a shot of that a little more clearly than being with a broken up background. That is just amazing. And here's the problem, and I'm going to just call this the glass. The glass panes are warped and distorted because whatever plastic you used at the time. So this is already fallen out. So we're going to take these out, and I'll show you what we're going to try to use to replace these. We can't get this one to close because it's so distorted. There's not enough clearance behind where the hinges are located to where it seats in there. Whereas this one's not quite as bad. When he put this together, he was paying attention to that stuff, fit and finish. For example, right here, between this fold down part of this hutch on each edge, I mean, it's almost identical as far as the clearance goes. Just fantastic. So what Mom said was she was looking for a knob, and what she meant by a knob was one of these brads here. That's what he used for the pulls. And I said that it's inside one of the drawers. There's actually two of them inside one of the drawers. Well, everything's so tiny, so I'm just going to show you to you that way. And this was in there too, but I don't think it goes with it. I don't think this is part of it at all. This is oversized because it doesn't match the size of the rest of the perspective of this little piece. And you can tell if we go over to one of these drawers here, the buttons, the ends of those brads rather, are a little larger than the ones up top here, for example, the ones on those little doors that have the glass in them. And I'm not sure if this goes in this spot here. I don't think it does. For this fold down piece, I mean, I don't think it goes here because it'll get in the way of the doors. In other words, it sticks up too proud. I think you're just supposed to have a little brad in there, so that's what we're going to put back in with some glue. This one's almost coming out, so we're going to fix that. But we're just going to do a few minor repairs on this and then stick it back in the display case. But I wanted to bring you along on it because I just think it's just so fabulous, this kind of precision. And you know me, I like precision. So as far as dating this goes, besides the writing on the back of this, which again, I didn't know it existed till just now, there's nothing else on it. Like he didn't put a maker's mark or anything on it. And there's no indication. Let me open these up. There's no indication on the inside of this fold down piece. While we're on the fold down piece, take a look at those hinges. Whoops, there goes our books again. Now, I talked to Mom about that, and she feels that he probably bought those like at a little hardware store or something, or found them somewhere. I don't believe those were something he made. That would probably have required some tooling that he didn't own. It's just amazing the size and perspective of it as far as those hinges go. So there's no marks, there's no writing or anything. So what Mom said was she remembers it basically probably around World War II, maybe early 50s. That's where she dates it at. Because he worked in a Navy yard during World War II. He had access to little pieces of brass and things like that. And it'll make more sense when I show you a couple more pieces later, that part of it. And I'm just going to show them to you as more of a FYI. So he had access to materials, in other words. Basically, what we're going to do here is just kind of restore this into the condition it was in and even a little bit better. So I'll show you what we're going to do for this glass first. So my idea on what to replace the glass with are these screen protectors for like iPhones. In fact, this is the exact same thing that's on the iPhone I'm shooting this video with. And I had two of these left. Extremely thin as far as the thickness of this stuff goes. I guessed at 30 thou. It's actually only about 22 thou. So this stuff basically is thinner than the diameter of those micro drills that I use to drill out the pilot screws in the carburetors, because the smallest one I use on that is 25 thou. Now I'm not sure what this stuff is made out of, but I know it's extremely brittle because I have cracked them, taking them off or doing stupid stuff. And there's a back and a front to it. Does it make a hill of beans a difference? Probably not. We're just going to go ahead and leave that sticker on for now. And I absolutely have no idea what I'm going to do with this, but my initial idea was to put it on a very flat surface and then use a glass cutter, put a light score in it, just try to snap it at that line. And then if that works, we should be able to snap it in the right dimensions for this rectangle here. So we're going to go ahead and take a piece of this out, move this over for now, get it out of the way, because it's getting ready to fall out anyway. I think all I'm going to do here is just push it with a pencil eraser and it comes right out. I don't know what this stuff was. It'd be interesting to see what the thickness of this is. Just maybe it'll give us an idea of what it was back in the time. That's only about 9 thousandths thick. So this is quite a bit thicker, relatively speaking, but I think it'll fit. I don't know, there's a couple things we can do to mitigate that without taking this thing all apart. I'm not trying to overcomplicate things, you know. Like I always say, when do I ever do that? But I'm just kind of giving you a perspective of what this little piece looks like. Something I just noticed about how these doors are hinged. I thought there was hinges on the inside like there were down here, you know. Nope. There's pins. There's a pin on the top and a pin on the bottom right there. So he obviously pinned this and then put the top in and put the door in at the same time. So essentially it's sandwiched in. Is that not the coolest thing or what? So he probably used a piece of a little brass nail or a brad and then made himself a couple pins and put those in. And of course the other side is exactly the same. And if you put them out to their maximum, they almost exactly match. I mean, look at this. This is precision, folks. This is precision. If you wonder where I get it from, well, that's part of it. That side of the family right there. This fetish for precision, because he was that way. I'll tell you a little bit more about my grandfather here in a little bit, but because I honestly didn't know him all that well, and we'll go into that here again soon. Let's work on this primarily. I'm going to get some measurements as to what we need to fit a piece of this material, if we can make it work in each one of these, and then come back and set it up and see if we can do that. This is a cute little paper cutter I picked up down the road at a yard sale a couple of years ago. I've actually already sharpened it. It works pretty well. And sometimes I use it to cut paper if I'm cutting a decal or something. It works well. It's the only thing that's reasonably flat that's not made of metal. I don't have a surface plate. If you guys want to buy me one, that's fine. Like maybe a 12 by 12 or a 16 by 16. That'll be perfect. But unfortunately I can't afford one. So as far as the size go, like I said, precision. What else would I use? We'd say inch and an eighth. I'm sorry, 2 1/8. 2 1/8, that's 2.125 right there. And inch and 3/4. Inch and 3/4. Inch and 3/8, dummy. 1.375. Because we're going to use a ruler on this part of it. I just wanted to measure that out as accurate as possible, because we're just going to go ahead and we're going to try to cut a piece and break the end of it, the edge of it. We need a square edge, so we'll that's probably the best thing we can do right now, is we need a square edge to start from, not a round edge. So we'll try to break off the end here so we have a square on the end to work from, and then we can pull a piece out from there. Try to save as much of the material as possible. I'm going to work sideways here because I'm right-handed and the way the camera is, and we'll give it a shot. I think we can just eye this in. I think even my grandfather would probably be okay with that as far as squareness goes. Right about there. Probably help if I get the glass cutter out of the package. For some reason, my father had about 5,000 of these things in that little parts drawer that I use for jets now. When I cleaned that out when we closed out Mom's old house. How come he's got like a dozen of these? Okay, maybe not 5,000, a dozen of them. And she didn't know either. It's like he always needed a glass cutter for something. I don't ever remember him once cutting glass, so I don't know, maybe he collected them or something. So while I'm preparing to destroy this piece of material here, I'll tell you about my grandfather a little bit more. I honestly didn't really know the man too much. He was an older gentleman when I got to be more of an interesting age, I guess you could call it. And he just, he was very distant too, in my opinion. He just was. He was a really nice guy, and he was very quiet and kept to himself, into, like I said, the precision and intricacy and things like that, which is very typical for somebody like that that is a heavy thinker, not drinker, heavy thinker, you know, uses that that energy, that brain energy, to do this kind of work here. And I remember him trying to teach me a few wood things back in the day, you know, when I was a kid at his shop. And I do remember he wasn't a very good teacher, I'll tell you right now. He did not have the patience for it. Like, I really loved to teach like EMS and fire stuff. I had a blast. I can't get this thing exactly level with it, so I'm just going to go with an angle here and see what we can do. Whoops. Well, that didn't work. Now, you know me, in any other situation, I would come up with some overly complicated, really extravagant clamping mechanism for this, but I'm trying to avoid doing that. I really am. And I think we're just going to be able to just get it as good as we can get it. Well, I do see a line on it, but I don't really even know what this stuff is made out of. Is it Lexan or, I don't know, polycarbonate? I just don't think that's good enough of a score. I'm going to change tactics. Let's do the old razor knife thing. Good. Just want a nice score across it. And the whole thing broke. Well, let's see. Let's see if it breaks on that line. Will it? Nope. You know why? Because the stuff is coated. Let's think now. Well, since it's already broken at that end, let's try something else. You know, like cut it with scissors type thing. Or maybe a paper cutter. Like I said, I sharpened this sucker. Nope. Yep, that ain't gonna work either. There's got to be a way to cut this. I've only got one piece left. This one's pretty much scrap. Okay, I think we're on to something. On the back side that has that sticker, there's a plastic film that goes between this and your iPhone screen or whatever phone you're using. And I figure if we can get that plastic off, then we'd have a better shot at actually scoring the glass, because what the plastic is doing is it's not allowing a straight distribution of the stresses on that one spot. And that's why it's cracking irregularly. That's a theory. First of all, I took the soldering gun and started melting it to see if it would melt. And you see how this is kind of peeled up right here? All I did was just take the heat gun, put it on nuclear, and it just wants to fold right up. Like that. Now it's hotter than a $3 pistol, but now you can get the crap off. Like that. If I can keep it in frame, that'd be nice. So what we need to do is we need to take the last one I've got, the only one I've got left. Do that. I'm going to get this plastic film off the inside. And then we're going to revisit trying to score it and snap it on the end. See if we can get a clean break that way. I think we got a lot better shot at least. This is actually glass, because if you tried to like scratch it or melt it with a soldering gun, that's glass, just very thin glass. We should be able to do this if we're careful. But with this coating on here, proved to be an issue regarding that. Now we can kind of test it. I know the contrast is terrible because it's clear, but you get the idea. We do this, we score it. We're going straight on the glass now. Can we get it to snap evenly? Well, we didn't there, but we might be on the right track. Whoops, maybe not there. Is it on both sides? Unless it's sandwiched in there. I thought it was only on one side. Look at this thing is layered. No, there ain't nothing coming off there. It's like a safety glass, which usually has a layer of that plastic in between it, which may mitigate us doing this completely with this particular material. Over and over again, it just cracks, yeah. I really wanted to use this stuff too. This would really be fabulous on there. Yeah. All right, more thinking to do. All right, I took that off the backside, and unfortunately I got too much heat in one spot, so this section here is going to be gone, but there's plenty of it left if we can salvage it. There is definitely plastic on this side of it, on both sides. So there's a looser one that goes toward the screen. This is the touch screen side. It's probably that plastic that is designed for touch screen use, you know, that transmits that whatever, the magic through your fingertips. We don't have any plastic on this side. So what if we cut on this side that's got the plastic and go through the plastic, because it's very thin? Can we snap it away from the glass side, the bare side, the naked side, and then we can just work that plastic away once it snaps, if we can get a straight line, if I'm saying that correctly. And we'll just kind of score it with a, I don't know, glass cutter or something. If I can hold the damn thing still. What am I going to do? I'm going to put the, where are you? There you are. I'm going to put the blade of the knife down in there. Get through that plastic on the outside. It's definitely not sandwiched between. I could start peeling it off. So I started to peel it off right here. It's just really hard to come. So I know the feeling. But couldn't help myself. Now we got to be through that plastic, you would think. Just don't see any line on that though. I don't see any score mark at all. And with my luck, this is the material they used for the heat shields on the space shuttle when it was flying. That's my luck. Oh. We just broke it. But that worked. I just went too far. That would have worked. Gosh darn it. Alright, well let's go right up here, past that crack diagonally, and do the same thing. Oh, that cracked over there too. Shoot. Well, I think we're going to have to abandon this one. Dang it. I was really hoping to be able to use this stuff, but I don't think there's any hope that we're going to be able to cut it with the material I have available as far as the tooling. And I don't have another one to try anyway, so dang it. That would have worked too, but it's very, very fiddly. All right, plan B, or maybe plan C. All right, folks, brake crafters to the rescue. And I just tossed 2 brand new ones of these containers from the ZRX. These are out from the shed. Probably a very similar material to what this was, but I think this is stiffer, maybe a little thicker. So that's plan C, because there was no plan B. I'll just cut out this center section into one big flat rectangular piece. Maybe we can even use this sucker to cut them up. Well, at first you don't succeed, send it out for repair. No, I'm just kidding. There are some irregularities along the edge here. See if I can pick it up in the reflection from being close to the edge of that molding, you know, where it folded up. So we'll go ahead and cut those out, see if this works. See if this thing will actually do it. If I can get the damn thing lined up. Yes, here we go. Oh yeah. That works nice. Gotta hold it in really close, otherwise it wants to fold under. I will put it this way and get a square edge here. I may have this thing adjusted wrong or something. Okay. All right. And if it gets slightly scratched, we'll polish it. There's nothing you really can't polish if you got the right compounds for it. So the first thing we're going to do is cut them into 2 pieces of the appropriate size. Okay, right up along that edge, which is right there where we need it to be. We need a little bit of room. Man, this thing's a pain. Okay, here we go. All right, there's your 2 1/8. Right, it would be this height there. You know, my old man used to say, measure twice and cut once. Or was it measure once and cut twice? One of the two. Let's fight with this thing and then get it down there. Here we go. All right. Something like that. We should be a hair over 1 3/8 now. Yeah, we're at 1 and about 9/16. Yeah. Ugh. It worked. I knew it would all the time. And it's fairly squarish, rectangleish. And again, something like that. All right, so what I need to do now is besides kick you guys, I'm going to need to carefully scrape this glue off. It's so brittle it'll come right off, but just very carefully to flatten it out. And then I think we're just going to take some Elmer's glue, kids glue, you know, for like school. That's really good stuff for this, I think. And then just put a little bit on, kind of like my grandfather did, it looks like. I don't know what kind of glue he used, but it sure looks like it's that kind. And then we'll just put a little bit on there and hopefully it doesn't leach down into the viewable area. I guess we'll just do the windows and then we'll set this aside and let it dry. And then we can come back and finish it out. Then kind of polish it out with some, some furniture polish and then put it back where it belongs. All right, I cleaned all that glue off basically with a razor knife off camera. Cleaned it up with some alcohol. But before I did that, I was just blowing it off with some light compressed air. This is the quote-unquote binder from this book set right here that popped off. And I wanted to show you that before I put it back on. Now that is really something. I think that is like just a piece of corrugated cardboard, you know, from a cardboard box or something from that era. Maybe this was done later on in the genesis of this thing. I don't know. And, you can see it's got that corrugation to it. That's how he did that. I assumed that he painted right on the wood there, but no, this is something he did separately and then dropped it on with some glue. Now if I touched it with anything to try to clean it off, it's going to destroy it. Now, since I've already gotten the glass in, and all I did was I showed you on this one and some B-roll, spread a little bit of this Elmer's glue, this school glue around, and then drop that piece in and then clamp it with a 6-inch scale on both sides. Good thing there's not a third window. I don't have any other 6-inch scales. So right now we'll go ahead and repair this just by putting a little bit of glue down in here. But that is just really, really slick how he did that. I just didn't realize it. I mean, the precision and the creativity on this. So I was talking about my grandfather before. Failed to mention that they are from Canada. They're Canadian. So Canadian viewers up there might be interested in that. I'm going to move that down a little bit. It's not seated right. And they spoke fluent French Canadian. My mother still can write it somewhat, but doesn't speak it, she said, anymore. She can read it, I should say. She can't really write it. Really didn't know any of those people up in Canada as far as relatives go. I think we met some of them when he died in 74, I think it was. And that's another reason why I just didn't know him that well, because, he died in 74, I think it was, maybe even 72, after having a second stroke. And I was like 11 years old, so I was probably 8 or 9 when I was trying to fiddle around with him in his workshop there. And again, I don't believe he really had a really good knack for teaching. He was more of a doer by himself, dedicated to concentration. So I don't think teaching is really something conducive to that. He tried to teach me a few things. I can't say I can remember anything, but he did try. I do remember him trying to show me a few things, and I do remember him getting frustrated too. So anyway, that's back in place. We'll leave that alone for now. I think we can look at something else here now, maybe. Like getting this guy back in. You can see some remnants of the glue over to the left there a little bit, so we'll put it back the same way. The way these things are kind of laid out. They're all different patterns, because you know how books are different on the binder. You can see that edge of that material that you put on there. See, it's kind of moving a little bit. We might actually take that off a little bit, maybe put a little bit underneath it, because it is moving around. It'll eventually pop off. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and do that. So I'll glue that in and then stick that in. But anyway, I'll tell you a story that I do remember about him while we're doing this. I remember one time, it's probably about 8 or 9, I was staying with him. You know, we lived in the Northeast then, so we were a few states away. It was about a 4-hour ride. They were in southern Maine, so it wasn't too bad. So I was staying with him. I don't remember if my parents were there or not at that time. And I fiddled around with like a pocket watch that he had in his bedroom or somewhere, and I broke it. And then I said to my grandmother, I said, I broke this pocket watch. And she's like, oh, well, you got to go tell your grandfather. Now, I should also probably tell you that they use the traditional French-Canadian, I guess it's traditional French-Canadian designation for grandmother and grandfather. I'll spell it out on the screen here. We called her Meme, and then he was Pepe. It was like Nana and Papa, I guess, that kind of thing. So I went to my Meme and said, yeah, I broke this thing by accident. She said, well, you got to go tell Pepe. I remember being so scared. I mean, I remember this as vividly as I remember, like, when I first got my driver's license, you know, a milestone moment like that. I was like so scared to go talk to him about that. And I had to muster every little bit of courage that I had to go into their living room and say, I'm sorry, I messed with your pocket watch and I broke it, and handed it to him. And he just looked at me and went, you know, basically, well, you learned something, so don't do it again. And I said, okay. And that was it. There was nothing more to it than that. And I remember feeling very relieved. So that's a life lesson, you know, as a kid, when you do something like that. And like I said, my parents weren't there. Otherwise, I probably would have gone to them. They probably would have been a little bit more sympathetic, in my mind at least. But ultimately, he was. Because he was a good guy. I mean, there's no question about it. He was a great man, or a good guy. Very, very skilled, very talented. I just wish I knew him better to learn a lot more from him. But again, he was older. He was much older, kind of a different thing. He obviously married, I think, later, and then had my mother later. And then so it was more of a thing that, you know, he was just old. He was old when I was getting, like I said before, to that interesting age where we could do stuff together. So it's unfortunate, but, you know, I have this stuff of his, which is kind of a legacy thing. And I'm going to do the best I can to restore it here. But there's a little story about him that kind of tells you a lot. This thing is pretty much complete right now. I'm not going to manipulate it a lot because I'm letting the glue dry. I went ahead and fixed this little brad that holds this as far as the pull for this door, because it was coming out. Doesn't exactly match this one, nor does it match that one, but it was in one of the drawers, so I just used it. I had to cut it down, so I don't think it was right for that. That's probably missing. That's probably what she was talking about. Didn't have to do any work on the drawers as far as these little brads go. Did some work on this one because this one was kind of wallered out. This was kind of interesting how I did this because it was a through hole. So I took a toothpick with some wood glue and I went from the back side, pushed the wood glue through from the back side and kept smushing it with my finger. And it pushed it through where you could actually see it right at the edge. That way it doesn't tend to want to kind of spread out all around the front. Then just twisted that brad in and then seated it and just let it cure up. It's not totally cured yet, so one thing I want to do, reason why I don't want to manipulate it, is I want to rub this down with some lemon oil or something. So we'll wait for tomorrow on that. But as far as the glass goes, that came out really nice if you put it in the light. It's not exactly what I had in mind, obviously. That was a big fail. But it still came out pretty well, and it works really well. And so there's the inside. And this one is the one that I was really concerned about because, whoops, slam it shut. Because it didn't want to close because of these things being so distorted, you know, these guys here. And it closes perfectly, so there's a shot of that. And it closes nice. So I'm real happy with the way this came out. Naturally, I have all the little doodads inside of it there, the drawers. And so they're back in. There was no problem with them anyway. I think we'll do one more final shot of this tomorrow after I rub it down with something like lemon oil or something. I'll show you the final product in a very brief clip that will close this video out. But I wanted to show you a couple other things that he made that I mentioned earlier. The first one is a napkin holder. Mom said that he made these for all the family members. And it has her initials and her maiden name initials, which I'm not going to disclose for obvious reasons. It's just I'm just flabbergasted by the quality of this whole piece. It's symmetrical as hell. I think that's either brass or copper, probably copper, inlay with perfect stamping. I mean, he obviously hand stamped this. It's perfect. It's like right at the edge of the top surface. The radiuses on the radii, I should say, on the inside and the outside match. And I don't ever remember him, or actually remember seeing like a wood lathe in his workshop. Of course, I was young, 6, 8 years old. I probably wouldn't have, but I would have probably remembered something spinning and cutting wood, but I don't. I asked Mom. She said she didn't know. And I did ask her if there's any photos that exist of that workshop's interior. There are some in the exterior of the building. It's just a little house that was converted. She said no, there's none that she knows of the inside of that. That would be really, really nice to have. Who knows, maybe someday we'll find them if they do exist. But it's just fantastic. And I guess there's a bunch of other family members that have these. And so he made a lot of stuff, she said, and gave it away like a gift time or birthday, Christmas time, and so forth. And this is just one of those things. That's really cool. Well, I'll put it right there so you can still look at it if you want. Now, remember I said he worked at a Navy Yard. I think the Navy Yard was actually in New Hampshire, not Maine, because I think that's where it is. They lived right on the Maine-New Hampshire border, really close to a town or city called Dover. That's D-O-V-E-R. And coincidentally, KZ-1000 Mark II that I did all that head work on, that machine shop I sent that head to was in Dover, New Hampshire. I told my mom that at the time. She was freaking out. She's like, no way. Well, anyway, working at the Navy Yard, he had access to that scrap material. And he used to make these submarines. And Mom's got one with a V that's made into it, she said. V for victory. And this is a tie clip, obviously. So I have one. My brother has one, and she has the one with the V. And I think these are just fantastic. It is a ferrous material. I just tested it because I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it might be stainless, but no, it's a regular ferrous steel. And he polished it up, and he did all this work somehow. I don't know how he did it, but he did all this work. And then soldered it to I imagine that's brass. Yeah, that's a brass clip on the back of it. And so I have this as well. And that's in the display case, which is really, really slick. I really, really like this. Take them out once in a while and wipe them off. Make sure they're not rusting. And that's where it stays. And the last thing I'll show you, according to Mom, he made this bucket. It's like a antique or vintage coal bucket. And there's felt on the bottom. And I asked her, I said, are you 100% sure that he made that bucket? She said she was. And I said, because it's so perfect that it almost looks like it's been made on a machine. The soldering and so forth. I mean, there's no tool marks from cleaning up the solder. I mean, how in the hell do you do that? And she said, nope, she is quite convinced that he made this. And this is one of the things that was laying around in their collection in their house for many, many years. Have no idea when or where. So I have to go off that he made this rather. I have to go off that information. So that's just another example of that craftsmanship. But yeah, so there's just a couple examples of craftsmanship that he did. That's pretty much it as far as this goes, and we'll go ahead and just do a final shot of this one. It's totally done, putting it back into the hutch where it stays, and we'll finish out this video. All right, folks, we are pretty much done with it. I need to go put it away before I drop it. All butterfingers here, but I think she came out real nice. The windows look great. I rubbed it down with some lemon oil very, very carefully. It really brought the grain of that wood out in the different colors as far as the tones of the wood and the striations and so forth. I think it's really, really awesome looking, and it'll be looking great in the display case. As far as this little ball goes, I did make a mistake on that. I thought that was a brass ball. In cleaning it, I realized that's just a little wood ball he made, and I'm sure this is probably brass, the little brad he cut down, probably a longer brad he cut down to make it, but that's not brass, it's actually wood. So that makes more sense because that would have been easier to obtain, number one, and number two, easier to fabricate. as far as drilling a hole through a round ball like that. Who knows, probably used a hand drill for drilling everything like that, you know, back in the day. I thought about polishing up the pulls, you know, little brads in the drawers and so forth, but they look like they're coated, and I didn't want to change the originality as far as what Pape or my grandfather would have intended for it. So we're just going to leave it all alone. The best thing sometimes is just to do that. And the inside's nice and clean too, because I had a little concern about all the dust that was built up in there. And I used cotton swabs and so forth and got that done. So she's looking real sweet, real fine. And I'm just really tickled the way she came out. And I'll send some stills up to my mom. I think she will be likewise tickled by it. At least it stopped raining. I've had rain for the last 2 days, but now it's going to be time to mow. All right, folks, so this one's in the can, this one's done. I hope you got something out of it and enjoyed it, and maybe learned a little bit more about me and the way I am, you know, that genetic thing. This was a lot of fun to do, and I really had a good time doing it, and it means a lot to me. And that's why I shared it with you, because it means a lot to me. Now, something like this typically would most likely show up on a second channel for a larger creator, or even a third channel. Some of them got 3. But I don't have that luxury. I don't have that size, so I have one channel. That's where I put this stuff up on. If you don't want to see stuff like this in the future, let me know in the comments. I don't have any problem with being honest with you. I want you to be honest with me. Like, I always show my mistakes, like that mistake or attempt to cut that glass cover protector for the iPhone to make the glass for this thing. Yeah, that was a big fail. But I wanted to show it anyway because, you know, maybe you learned something from it. I sure as hell did. So yeah, put it in the comments if you don't want to see stuff like this. If you want to see stuff like this, then put that in the comments too. Otherwise, in the future, we're going to go back to our normal programming. We've got some other stuff coming up in machining, got some other stuff coming up most likely in motorcycle repair and things like that. So stick around and you get to see all that. As always, thanks for watching. And the same goes for whether you're working on a motorcycle, or you're working on a car, or you're working on something else that's old, or even a piece of miniature furniture. Always remember, folks, don't just repair, restore. We'll catch you on the next video.